Just when Daniel thought he had subdued Samuel, Samuel suddenly overpowered him and stabbed him in the stomach. Someone in the crowd quickly called the police, and within moments the sound of sirens filled the air. Samuel had acted out of anger, but now he had killed a man who was only fighting for love. But who is this mysterious woman that all these men are willing to risk their lives for? And when Samuel is eventually released from prison, will he plot a deadly revenge? Buckle up! You're about to dive into the full story of the love cursed by murder. The secrets, heartbreaks, murder, and the shocking twists that will leave you speechless. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for more powerful African tales.
In the busy town of Malunga, there was a well-known trader named Mr. Baraka. He owned the biggest shop in the market, selling everything from fine fabrics to household items, groceries, and spices. His shop was always full of customers, and he had many workers helping him. Baraka was a kind man, treating his workers with respect and paying them well. Because of this, they were loyal to him. Among his workers was a man named Musa. He had worked for Baraka for over 10 years and was one of his most trusted employees. Baraka often said, "Musa is like a brother to me. I don't know what I would do without him." But what Baraka did not know was that Musa had been hiding jealousy in his heart for many years. Musa watched how Baraka lived a good life, how he had a loving wife, Amina, and a beautiful little daughter, Zuri. He saw how Baraka's shop made more money than any other business in town. And deep inside, Musa wished all of it belonged to him. One night, as he sat alone in his small rented room, Musa whispered to himself, "If Baraka was gone, the shop would be mine." The thought grew in his mind every day until it became a plan. Musa did not want to just take the shop. He wanted everything: Baraka's house, his money, and his entire life. He knew that if Baraka's family remained, they would claim the business. So Musa decided they all had to die. It was a cold, dark night when Musa made his move. He had gathered a few men from outside town, men who did anything for money. He promised them a share of Baraka's wealth if they helped him. When midnight came, they went to Baraka's house. They entered quietly and moved toward the bedrooms. Baraka woke up when he heard a sound. Before he could react, Musa and his men attacked him. "Musa, what are you doing?" Baraka shouted, but Musa had no mercy. Amina woke up to the noise. When she saw what was happening, she grabbed little Zuri and ran out of the room. Musa's men chased her, but she was fast. She ran through the back door into the night. She did not stop until she reached the home of an old neighbor, banging on the door desperately. Meanwhile, Musa and his men finished their cruel act. Baraka was dead. They searched the house for Amina and Zuri, but they were nowhere to be found. Musa was angry, but he told himself, "They will never return. The shop is mine now." Amina stood at the doorstep of her old neighbor, Mama Fatuma, shivering in the cold night air. Little Zuri clung to her mother's chest, her tiny body trembling in fear. When Mama Fatuma opened the door and saw Amina's tear-streaked face, she knew something terrible had happened. Baraka. "They killed him," Amina cried, falling to the ground. Mama Fatuma gasped, pulling Amina and the baby inside. "Who did this?" she asked. Amina wiped her tears and whispered, "Musa." Mama Fatuma covered her mouth in shock. "Musa? The man Baraka trusted like a brother?" Amina nodded. The pain in her heart was unbearable, but she knew she could not stay there. Musa would come looking for her. He would want to finish what he started. "You must leave this town." "Amina," Mama Fatuma said, "take Zuri and go far away before Musa finds you." Amina knew she was right. With Mama Fatuma's help, she gathered a few clothes and some money. Before the sun rose, she took Zuri and left Malunga, the town where she had once been happy. Amina traveled for days, taking small buses and walking long distances. She finally arrived in a town where no one knew her, Kasanga. It was a small, quiet place, far from Malunga. Life was not easy. She had no house, no job, and no family to help her. She knocked on doors, looking for work, but people turned her away. Days turned into weeks. Amina and Z slept in abandoned buildings, sometimes going to bed hungry. But Amina refused to give up. One day, she met an old woman named Madame Rose, who owned a small restaurant. "You can wash dishes here," Madame Rose said. "I cannot pay you much, but at least you will eat." Tears filled Amina's eyes. "Thank you, madam. May God bless you," she said. Amina worked hard, saving every coin she earned. Over the years, she learned how to cook and soon became one of the best cooks in the restaurant. Madame Rose developed a bond with her and helped her rent a small house. Zuri, now a little girl, grew up watching her mother struggle. She saw the pain in Amina's eyes, but she also saw her strength. "Mama, one day I will take care of you," Zuri would say, and Amina would smile. She prayed for the day her daughter would have a better life. Years passed, and Zuri grew into a bright and hard-working young girl. Amina made sure she went to school, no matter how difficult life was. Every morning, Amina would wake up early to prepare food at Madame Rose's restaurant, and in the evening, she would help Zuri with her homework. Zuri was determined to make her mother proud. She studied hard, knowing that education was the only way to change their lives. One day, when Zuri was 19, she came running home, her face glowing with excitement. "Mama, I have been accepted into university," she shouted. Amina dropped the plate she was holding. Tears of joy filled her eyes. "My child, I knew you would make it." She hugged Zuri tightly, but soon worry crept into her heart. How would she pay for Zuri's university fees? Madame Rose saw Amina's struggle and decided to help. "You have worked for me for many years, Amina. You are like family. Take this money and send your daughter to school," she said, handing Amina an envelope. Amina fell to her knees, overwhelmed by gratitude. "Madame Rose, I don't know how to thank you," she said. "Just promise me one thing." Madame Rose smiled. "Make sure Zuri becomes someone great." With Madame Rose's help, Zuri left for university in the city. Amina watched her go with tears in her eyes, praying that her daughter's future would be brighter than her past. University life was exciting for Zuri. She made new friends, explored the city, and focused on her studies. In her second year at the university, she met a young man named Daniel. He was kind, intelligent, and always made her laugh. They spent a lot of time together, studying, going for walks, and talking about their dreams. Slowly, Zuri realized she was in love, and Daniel felt the same way. After a year of dating, Daniel said, "Zuri, I want to meet your mother. I want her to know that I love you." Zuri was nervous but happy. She took Daniel home to meet Amina. When Amina opened the door and saw Daniel, her smile disappeared. Her heart pounded. His face, his eyes. He looked familiar. Too familiar. She kept thinking whom this could be. Zuri looked confused and asked her mother what was wrong with her. Amina stared at Daniel and asked, "Who is your father?" Daniel was surprised. He told her his father's name is Musa. Amina's blood turned cold. Her knees became weak. Musa? The man who killed her husband. The man who destroyed her life. This was his son? Silence filled the small house. Amina felt as if she couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded, and her hands trembled. Musa's son? Here? In my home? Loving my daughter? Zuri looked between her mother and Daniel, confused. "Mama, what's wrong?" she asked again. Amina took a deep breath, then turned to Zuri. "You cannot be with this boy," she said firmly. Zuri frowned and asked, "What? Why?" Amina pointed at Daniel. "Because his father is the man who murdered your father." Daniel's eyes widened in shock. "What? No. That can't be true." Amina said while crying, "It is true. Your father, Musa, betrayed my husband, Baraka. He killed him and tried to kill me and Zuri, but we escaped." Zuri covered her mouth, unable to believe what she was hearing. The man she loved was the son of her father's killer? Daniel stepped back, shaking his head. "No. My father told me he took over a business from a greedy man. He never said anything about murder." Amina's voice rose. "He lied to you. He took everything from us. And now, you want to take my daughter too." Tears filled Zuri's eyes. "Daniel, is this true?" Daniel was speechless. He had never known this part of his father's past, but deep down, he knew Amina was not lying. His father had always been secretive about his past. Amina turned to her daughter. "I will not let you marry the son of the man who destroyed our family." Zuri felt her heart breaking. She loved Daniel, but she could not ignore the truth. She looked at him, pain in her eyes, and whispered, "I can't marry you while your father is still alive." Daniel felt like his whole world had collapsed. Daniel left Zuri's home with a storm of emotions inside him. He had grown up believing his father was a hard-working businessman, but now he had to face the truth. His father was a murderer. Months passed, and Zuri refused to see him. She was heartbroken, but she could not betray her mother's pain. Daniel fell into deep thought. He loved Zuri more than anything. If his father was the reason she couldn't be with him, then his father had to die. One evening, Daniel went home and found his father sitting in the living room. "Father," he said, with a cold voice, "tell me the truth. Did you kill Baraka?" Musa looked up, surprised. "Who told you that nonsense?" "Zuri's mother. She survived, and now she won't let me be with Zuri because of what you did." Musa took a deep breath, rubbing his forehead. "Son, I did what I had to do. That man had everything, and I had nothing. I took what I deserved." Daniel's blood boiled. "You destroyed a family. You made an innocent woman suffer, and now you've ruined my life too." Musa laughed bitterly. "So what will you do? Hate me? Kill me? You are my son. That woman will never accept you." Daniel pulled out a knife from his pocket. "Then I will remove the problem from my life." Musa's eyes widened in shock. "Daniel, you don't have to do this." But before he could finish his sentence, Daniel plunged the knife into his chest. Musa gasped, blood spilling from his mouth. "This is for Zuri," Daniel whispered. Musa fell to the floor, dead. Daniel stood over his father's lifeless body, his heart pounding. He had done it. The man who had destroyed Zuri's family was gone. He wiped the blood off his hands, grabbed his phone, and sent Zuri a message. "It's done. My father is dead. There is nothing standing in our way now." Then he waited. Minutes passed, then hours, but there was no reply. Finally, Daniel decided to go see her. He rushed to Zuri's house, knocked on the door, and waited. When the door opened, he was surprised to see Amina, Zuri's mother, standing there, her arms crossed. "Zuri is not here," she said. Daniel frowned. "Where is she?" Amina's eyes were filled with anger. "She has moved on." Daniel felt as if he had been punched in the chest. "What do you mean?" Zuri was heartbroken. "She decided to let you go. A young man came into her life, and she chose him," Amina said. Daniel felt as if he had been punched in the chest. "What do you mean?" Zuri was heartbroken. "She decided to let you go. A young man came into her life, and she chose him," Amina said. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. "No, that's impossible. She loves me." "She did, but she couldn't wait forever," Amina said. "And now, she is gone." Daniel asked angrily, "Where did she go?" Amina stayed silent. Daniel stepped closer. "Tell me. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. Leave my daughter alone," said Amina. Daniel spent days searching for Zuri. He asked her old friends, checked places they used to go together, but she was nowhere to be found. Then, finally, he found out the truth. Zuri and her new lover had fled the country. Daniel's heart burned with anger. "She thinks she can escape me," he shouted. Zuri and her new lover, Samuel, sat quietly in the small apartment they had rented in Kampala, Uganda. Samuel was Zuri's childhood friend who has always admired her but not been given a chance. But after finding out whom Daniel was, Zuri decided to give Samuel a chance. It had been 2 weeks since they fled Kenya, and Zuri was still afraid. Back in Kenya, Daniel sat in a dark room, scrolling through his phone. He had been searching for clues, and finally, he found something. An old friend of Zuri had posted a picture on social media. In the background, Daniel saw something familiar, a hotel in Kampala. His lips curled into a smile. "I found you, Zuri." Without wasting time, he booked a flight to Uganda. As the plane took off, he whispered to himself, "If I can't have you, no one will." One evening, as Zuri and Samuel walked back to their apartment, Zee suddenly felt uneasy. It was the same feeling she had when she and her mother were running from Musa all those years ago. Samuel noticed her worried expression. "What's wrong?" Zee stopped and looked around. "I don't know. Just feel like someone is watching us." Samuel turned his head just in time to see a shadowy figure across the street. It was Daniel. "Run!" Samuel shouted, grabbing Zuri's hand. Daniel started chasing them. "You can't run forever, Zee," he yelled. Zuri and Samuel ran through the narrow streets, dodging people, pushing through crowds. But Daniel was fast, and he was catching up. Just when they thought they had lost him, Daniel appeared in front of them, blocking their path. "Did you really think you could escape me?" asked Daniel. Samuel stepped forward, shielding Zee. "Leave her alone, Daniel. This is over." Daniel pulled out a knife. "No, it's not over until I say it is," Zee, panting, said. "Daniel, please don't do this." But Daniel's mind was made up. If he couldn't have her, he would rather see her dead. Daniel took slow steps toward them, his knife glittering under the streetlights. "Daniel, please," Zee pleaded, with tears in her eyes. "You don't have to do this." But Daniel wasn't listening. His mind was filled with anger and betrayal. "You were supposed to be mine, Zuri. I killed my own father for you. That was your choice." "Daniel," said Samuel. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "And yet she still left me." He pointed the knife at Samuel. "And now, you will pay for taking her from me." Before Daniel could strike, Samuel struggling to point the knife to his face. Zee watched in horror as Daniel overpowered Samuel, pushing him to the ground. He raised the knife, ready to stab him. "No," Zee screamed. Without thinking, she grabbed a wooden wood lying nearby and hit him with all her strength. The stick hit Daniel's neck, making him drop the knife. Samuel took the chance to stab Daniel hard in the stomach, and he falls to the ground. Zuri breathed heavily, tears streaming down her face. "It's over, Daniel." Daniel knew it was over. He looked up at Zee, his eyes filled with pain. "I loved you," he whispered. Zee wiped her tears. "Love isn't supposed to hurt." The sound of sirens filled the night air as the police arrived at the scene. A small crowd had already gathered, whispering among themselves as they watched the lifeless body of Daniel on the ground. Blood pooled around him, and Samuel stood nearby, his hands shaking, his face filled with fear. The police officers quickly moved in, their torches flashing across the dark street. They pointed at Samuel. "Drop the knife and put your hands up." Samuel looked at Zuri, who was crying and holding her hands over her mouth in horror. He had acted out of anger and desperation, but now reality was sinking in. He had killed a man, and there was no escape. Another officer approached cautiously, grabbing Samuel's arms and handicapping him as his lead to the police car. "You are under arrest for murder," the officer said. "You have the right to remain silent." Zee watched, frozen in place. She couldn't believe what had happened. She never wanted things to end this way. She never wanted anyone to die. As Samuel was dragged toward the police car, he turned to look at her, his eyes filled with something between regret and anger. "This is because of you, Zee," he stuttered before being pushed into the back seat. Tears streamed down Zee's face as she watched the car drive away. Everything felt unreal, like a terrible nightmare she couldn't wake up from. After a week, Samuel appeared before the court for trial. Zuri and her mother were filled with guilt for dragging Samuel into their family affairs. Samuel sat in the courtroom staring at Zee with anger, dressed in a dull brown prison uniform, his hands in cuffs. The room was filled with people, Daniel's family, Zee and her mother, and several members of the community who had come to witness the trial. The judge entered, and everyone rose. As the trial began, the prosecutor stood and described the events of that night. The accused, Samuel, attacked and killed Daniel in a fit of rage. This was a crime of jealousy and revenge, and for this, he must face justice. Samuel's lawyer tried to defend him. "My client acted in self-defense. Daniel was threatening him first, but the evidence was too strong." Witnesses had seen Samuel holding the knife. The blood-stained weapon had his fingerprints, and Zuri, though heartbroken, had told the truth about what had happened. After hours of arguments and testimonies, the judge finally spoke. The court finds Samuel guilty of murder, he announced. The sentence is 7 years in prison. Samuel's face was blank, but inside, he was boiling with anger. 7 years in jail for a woman who betrayed him, for a love that meant nothing in the end? As he was led away, he turned to look at Zuri one last time. She held onto her mother's hand and cried. Years passed, and Zuri tried to move on with her life. She returned to her mother's home, trying to heal from the pain and loss. She found it hard to trust again, but time helped ease her wounds. After 4 years, she met a man named Kevin. He was kind and understanding, and most importantly, he loved her deeply. Unlike the past, there were no fights, no violence, just peace and happiness. In the 5th year after Samuel's imprisonment, Zuri and Kevin got married in a beautiful ceremony attended by close friends and family. Amina watched with pride, knowing her daughter had finally found happiness again. A year later, they were blessed with a baby boy, whom they named Baraka, after Zuri's father. Life was finally good. The past felt like a distant memory, and Zuri was determined never to look back. 7 years felt like a lifetime for Samuel, but the day of his release finally arrived. He stepped out of the prison gates, taking a deep breath of fresh air, but freedom didn't bring him peace. Instead, his heart was filled with anger and resentment. The first thing he did was return to his old home. Everything had changed, new faces, new buildings, but his pain remained the same. He went to Amina's house eager to see Zuri again, to find out if she had waited for him. Then he heard the news. Zuri was married, and not only that, she had a child with another man. Samuel's heart shattered. After everything I did for her? After I killed for her, he whispered to himself. I went to prison because of her, and she moved on. Married someone else? A dark rage took over him. He knew what he had to do. He had to make her pay. He had to make them all pay. Samuel began watching Zuri from a distance. He followed her when she went to the market, observed her with her husband and child. He saw how happy she was, and it made his blood boil. One evening, he approached her while she was walking alone. Zuri, he called out. She turned, and her face went pale. Samuel! Her voice was barely a whisper. Samuel stepped closer. I went to prison for you, Zuri, and when I come back, I find you married to another man? Zuri swallowed hard, fear creeping into her heart. Samuel, she stammered. You betrayed me. Samuel's voice rose in anger. I loved you. I killed for you. And you replaced me? Zuri took a step back. Samuel, please, the past is gone. I had to move on. Samuel's eyes darkened. No, Zuri, the past is not gone, and I will make sure you feel the same pain I felt. Zuri's heart pounded as she realized the danger she was in. Samuel was not the same man she once knew. He was filled with hatred, and she knew he would stop at nothing for revenge. She turned and ran. Samuel watched her disappear into the night, a cruel smile forming on his lips. This is not over, Zuri. Not yet. So Samuel decided he will kill all of them, Zuri, her mother, her husband, and her son, and the hunt began. Samuel sat in a dimly lit room. He had waited long enough. Revenge was all that kept him going. He had spent 7 years in a prison cell because of Zuri, and now she was living a happy life while he rotted in misery. He would make sure she paid for it. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. A deep voice answered. It's time, Samuel said. Go to the house. Destroy everything. Leave no trace. The men he hired were ruthless. They stormed into Zuri's home, smashing furniture, tearing apart clothes, and breaking every fragile item in sight. They overturned the dining table, shattered the television, and left menacing messages on the walls in red paint. You can't escape the past. But Samuel's satisfaction was short-lived. The next morning, he received a call from one of his men. Boss, they weren't home. Samuel's grip on the phone tightened. What do you mean? They must have left before we got there. The place was empty. Zuri and her family had gone on a family getaway? He asked angrily. His carefully planned message of terror had failed to reach them directly, but he wasn't finished yet. When Zuri and Kevin returned with their son, Baraka, they were met with destruction. Their home was unrecognizable. Amina shouted, clutching her chest, while Kevin stood frozen in shock. Zuri stepped forward, her heart pounding. She didn't need to guess who had done this. She knew. "This is Samuel," she whispered. Kevin turned to her. "What did you say?" She hesitated. "I don't know for sure, but we need to report this." The police arrived, surveying the damage. They took notes, snapped pictures, and promised an investigation. But Zuri knew the law wouldn't stop Samuel. He wouldn't rest until he had what he wanted. And deep down, she feared this was only the beginning. Samuel was furious. His first attack had failed, but he would not be stopped. He had spent years plotting his revenge, and he would not stop until Zuri paid for what she had done. This time, he would make sure there was no escape. He called his men again. "This time, we do it differently. I want them taken out while they least expect it." His plan was simple, an ambush. He had studied Zuri's routine. He knew her family went to church every Sunday morning. That would be the perfect time to strike. The morning was bright and peaceful. Zuri and Kevin were in the car, with Baraka strapped in the back seat. Amina sat beside him. They were on their way to church, unaware that danger lurked just around the corner. As they drove down an empty road, a black SUV suddenly sped up behind them. Kevin glanced in the mirror, frowning. "That car has been following us for a while." Zuri turned to look and something felt wrong. "Maybe it's just a coincidence," she said, trying to convince herself. Then, the worst happened. The black SUV turned to the side, pulling up beside them. The windows rolled down, and masked men pointed rifles at them. Kevin's eyes widened. "Get down," he shouted, turning the car to avoid the gunfire. Bullets shattered the windows. Glass flew everywhere. Zuri shielded Baraka with her body as Amina screamed. Kevin struggled to control the car, but another bullet hit the tire. The vehicle spun out of control, flipping twice before crashing into a ditch. Smoke rose from the wreckage. The attackers watched for a moment, then sped away, leaving them for dead. Pain. That was the first thing Zuri felt when she opened her eyes. Her vision was blurry, and her body ached. She turned her head and saw Kevin, blood dripping from his forehead. Amina was unconscious, while Baraka whimpered softly in the back seat. "We need help," Kevin groaned, trying to move. Zuri reached for her phone with trembling hands. She dialed the emergency number. "Please, we've been attacked. We need an ambulance." The world spun around her as sirens filled the air. Zuri woke up in a hospital bed, her head wrapped in bandages. Pain shot through her body as she tried to sit up. Kevin lay in a bed next to her, his head turned away, his expression unreadable. Amina was awake, sitting by Baraka's crib, stroking his tiny hand. Zuri knew it was time to tell the truth. "Kevin," she said weakly. He turned to her. "Who did this, Zuri?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Samuel." Kevin's jaw clenched. "I knew it." He shook his head. "And you knew too, didn't you? You knew he was coming after us, and you didn't tell me." "I was scared," Zuri admitted. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to drag you into this." Kevin stood abruptly. "You didn't want to drag me into this?" "Zuri, we almost died. Baraka almost died. You should have told me the moment you suspected him." Zuri's tears spilled over. "I'm sorry." Kevin took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Sorry won't change what happened." He turned to the window, staring outside. "I won't let him get away with this." Zuri's heart pounded. "Kevin, no." He faced her, his eyes dark with determination. "If the police won't stop him, I will." Amina stood up. "Kevin, listen to me," she said, with a firm voice. "Revenge will only lead to more bloodshed. We need to end this fight." But Kevin shook his head. "I won't sit back and wait for him to come after us again. Please, let's find another way," Zuri cried. Amina stepped forward. "There is only one way to stop this." We need to bring both families together. We need to end this conflict before more lives are lost. Kevin's lips pressed into a thin line, but he said nothing. Z knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Amina took matters into her own hands. She arranged a meeting between the two families, inviting Samuel's relatives to sit down and discuss a resolution. The tension in the room was thick as Samuel, his mother, and his older brother faced Zuri, Kevin, and Amina. Samuel, with an angry face, made his demand. I wasted 7 years in prison for her. I want compensation. $30,000. Kevin Jirek, I won't pay a cent. But Amina, seeing the only way to bring peace, nodded. I will pay. The money was exchanged. Samuel, though bitter, accepted the deal. Over time, the family slowly healed. Samuel moved away, and Zuri and Kevin were finally able to live in peace. The past no longer controlled them, and at last, they were free. Thanks for watching till the end. We would love to hear from you about our stories to help us improve. And if you've enjoyed the video, give it a like so the algorithm can recommend it to more people, and also subscribe. Until then, we'll see you in our next video.